My name is Victoria Murillo, and today I'm doing a presentation titled Increasing the Maximum Capacity of Late Night Study Hours. So before I jump into my presentation, I just wanted to ask the class two questions just to get a feel of how many people have actually experienced the problem that I'm addressing in this presentation. So one of the questions is, how many of you guys have actually used late night study hours? Okay, so a good majority of the class has. In case you guys don't know, late night study hours starts at midnight at Davison's library, and we're restricted to only using the mountain side of the library, so they only allow us 2 floors. So the other question I wanted to ask you guys is, how many of you guys ever experienced difficulty finding a seat in the library or somewhere to study? Okay, yeah, so a lot of you guys have also experienced this problem. Maybe if you haven't, you've seen other people experience, but it's kind of a prevalent issue here at UCSB. Um, so the outline real quick, I'm going to give you guys some background information, then actually talk about the issue, how I recommend that the library fixes it or deals with it, my resources, and some closing statements. So some background information. Late night study hours has a capacity of 1,077 seats. So while that may seem like a lot when you analyze that figure alone, when you actually consider the amount of students here, you can see where the problems lay. So there's 24,346 students that were enrolled at UCSB in the last school year, so 2016 to 2017. So if you consider that there's only 1,077 seats, that means that only 4.4% of students can be at the library during late night study hours. And that becomes a clear issue when students are not able to find seats in the library because of the lack of seats that are available to us. For example, I know 2 weeks ago I was at the library. My group wanted to meet up at 4, but we didn't actually sit down in our seats until 4:30 because it took us 30 minutes to find a seat. And that leads to different kind of issues, like it becomes really frustrating for students who just want to go to the library, sit down, and get their work done when they have to spend time looking for a seat and sometimes may not even find a seat. You start to get frustration towards the library. And also, this may cause students to be discouraged from even coming back to the library to avoid the whole situation of not finding a seat and wasting their time anyway. And overall, this can affect how students do in school. Their grades might start slipping because they don't have any place to study. Maybe their home is not an appropriate study place because they have too many roommates, and they're not able to go to the library because they're trying to avoid of wasting their time. So this can lead to consequences. Like I said, students become frustrated and angry and almost want to give up studying altogether. And another effect is that students tend to find their own study spaces, and sometimes that may be laying on the floor like this gentleman here. Others sometimes will just sit on the floor and study out of their lap, which can cause a lot of back problems. So there's a lot of issues involved in students not being able to find seats. So the bulk of this information was provided by Gary Johnson, who's the librarian of scholarly services here at the university. He was able to give me the figures on the capacity of the library, as well as what days and hours are the most busy. He also gave me some tips and ideas on how he would approach increasing the maximum capacity, which was very helpful and helped me make my proposal into a more realistic one that the library might actually be able to implement. The other source that I used for this project was UCSB's budget and planning website, and they were able to provide the figures on how many students were enrolled in the last school year, and those were found on their website. Okay, so going into closing statements, I wanted to emphasize that UCSB students should not be penalized for the number of students that are actually enrolled here. The library should accommodate a greater amount of students because students are the ones who end up getting the negative effects, wasting 20 to 30 minutes that they could be using on study times looking for seats, and sometimes not even finding them. and having to compromise and hurt their back in the process. And if Davis's library was able to increase the maximum capacity, they could do so in a way that saves them thousands of dollars through this proposal. And that would be done through recycling the furniture that they already have from other floors and relocating them into late night study areas while switching those out for the bookshelves. And they would only have to buy 23 new seats of furniture versus hundreds if they did this in a different manner. And the reason why this is also important is because the student body at UCSB increased 18% last year. That means thousands of new kids are added every single year. So this problem is only going to be exacerbated through the following years, and it would be easier if the library started making changes now as to avoid more foot traffic and more nuances caused by an increased number of students. And so it would be in their best interest to take this cost-efficient approach sooner rather than later in order to avoid more frustration and contempt that UCSB students may have for the library. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. I will attach my email to this submission.